This is called the fundus, the body, and the pyloric region. Let me get it apart here. So here's the esophagus coming in here. This would be the lower esophageal sphincter here. You can see the rugal folds. Okay. Lesser curvature, greater curvature. Can't see much else on this one. The 3 layers of muscle. How about that model of the stomach over out towards the right there? Okay, so this does show that you have an inner, what do you call it, oblique layer, circular layer, longitudinal layer. This is the stomach model. This would be your mucosa. This would be your submucosa with a plexus of Meissner controlling secretions. And this would be the muscularis, the myenteric, or plexus of Auerbach controlling movements. So we have 3 layers of muscle there. And then outside is the serosa. Okay, let me do the kidney thing maybe now. Okay. So you had to pin a lot of things here. The capsule, the cortex, the medulla with the pyramids, and the columns between the pyramids. And then at the tip, so the nephrons are partially in the cortex, partially in the medulla. At the tip of the, it's called a papilla, that's where we start the minor calyx. And by then it's urine, it's not a filtrate anymore. And then the major calyces would be when you have several minor coming together. And then when the majors come together, that's the pelvis. And then here's the ureter here. Okay, what would this be? Afferent what? Arterial. What would this be? Efferent arterial, not a venial. What would this be? This would be the distal convoluted tubule. This area.
This one is afferent and this one is efferent.
That's afferent. It's larger than the efferent. This is the what do you call it? Distal convoluted tubule. This area right here is called the juxtamedullary apparatus. These would be the macula densa cells, and this would be the smooth muscle cells of the afferent arteriole. And we have a parietal layer and the visceral layer. So we have 3 layers to get through. If we're going to go from the blood here to the capsule, capsular space, we get through the simple squamous cells of the endothelium. We filtered out all the large things like the red blood cells, white blood cells, platelets. The basement membrane is going to filter out large proteins. And the podocyte, the slits here, are going to filter out the medium-sized proteins. So what we have here in the filtrate is plasma minus most of the proteins. We still have small proteins. We still have amino acids. We still have glucose. Let's see. So we have different kinds of nephrons. Some of them are primarily in the cortex, so they're called cortical nephrons. They have a short loop of Henle, or nephron loop. Juxtamedullary nephrons have a very long nephron loop. This is called the glomerulus. And you can see, when you look at the slide, you'll see that you see a lot of these glomeruli out in the cortex. And they look a lot like islets of Langerhans, but there's not, you have a lot more glomeruli than islets of Langerhans. Then this is the proximal convoluted tubule, where we do a lot of reabsorption, water, glucose, amino acids, small proteins, and some of the electrolytes. Then we have the nephron loop, the descending limb, a thick and thin. The thin portion, we're going to go from cuboidal cells with lots of microvilli, eventually down to simple squamous. We're going to do a lot of water reabsorption here. This area is water impermeable. We have a thin and a thick portion. but we can pump out sodium chloride, and that makes this area down here very concentrated in salt. That helps pull water out from the descending limb. And then the distal convoluted tubule, that's where we do a lot of secretion. Get rid of ammonia, a lot of toxic nitrogen-containing things, extra hydrogen ions. But it's also under control of two hormones. What are the two hormones? Antidiuretic hormone, which causes water absorption, and what? Aldosterone. So if you're dehydrated, then you have a lot of a lot of antidiuretic hormone because you reabsorb more water here and in the collecting duct. If not, you don't have that, and it just goes on through, and you have a dilute urine. Aldosterone causes more sodium to be reabsorbed, and water follows it. So that would increase sodium concentration and blood volume and blood pressure. So that can act also in this convoluted tubule and collecting duct. And we have two kinds of capillaries here. If it's around the tubules, that's called peritubular. If it's around here, they're called vasorectal, and they should be kind of looping. And anything else I've forgotten? I think that's about it. So if your blood pressure is low, blood volume low,